Back in September, which feels like years ago, many people were shocked by whistleblower allegations about, among other things, coerced hysterectomies of immigrants at ICE detainment centers. This isn't going to focus on those allegations specifically, but I've linked the report below. The US has a long legacy of forced sterilization. The US has specifically targeted disabled and/or poor and/or non-white people in racist and ableist policies, hiding under the guise of fitness and mental health. And I figured we should talk about it. Forced sterilization is a major component of eugenics, which is a science that attempts to improve the human race by controlling which people procreate. Prepare for a lot more sarcastic air quotes. Let's take a tour through history, shall we? The first serious attempt in US history to create laws around forced sterilization for eugenic purposes was in 1849. A physician in Texas proposed a bill mandating the sterilization of people whose genes he deemed undesirable, including the mentally disabled. The bill was never sponsored or brought up for a vote. Yay? Fast forward to 1984, when the Immigration Restriction League was founded. Their goal was to prevent inferior races from diluting the superior American racial stock, aka upper-class people of Anglo-Saxon heritage. They lobbied for stricter anti-immigration laws against Jews and Southern and Eastern Europeans specifically. This brings us to 1907, when the world's first eugenics sterilization law was passed in Indiana. 31 other states soon followed its lead, and under those laws, about 60,000 people were involuntarily sterilized because they were deemed unfit to reproduce. Policies in Nazi Germany actually modeled these laws. In their propaganda, they even referenced the US eugenic movement. In 1927, the Supreme Court ruled in Buck v. Bell that eugenic sterilization was constitutional. After this ruling, sterilization rates picked up all over the US. Fun fact, Buck v. Bell has never officially been overturned. Laws varied from state to state as well as populations they affected. For example, California began targeting people of Mexican descent. In North Carolina, a third of the sterilizations were done on Black girls under 18, even as young as 9. Oklahoma had laws that used sterilization as punishment for crimes, notably white-collar crimes didn't qualify. In 1942, those specific laws were actually overturned in another Supreme Court case, Skinner v. Oklahoma. However, in as late as 2017, a judge in Tennessee was reprimanded for offering defendants lower jail sentences in exchange for agreeing to be sterilized. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, sterilization policy's main target became African American women. Largely taking place in the South, the procedure got the nickname Mississippi appendectomies. Women coming back from the hospital after giving birth or for some other medical treatment found themselves incapable of having more children due to unnecessary hysterectomies performed on them by medical students. Most eugenics-related laws were repealed by the 70s, but the pattern of sterilization of Black women continued even into the 70s when testimony brought to a Senate committee revealed thousands of involuntary sterilizations performed on poor Black women without their consent and/or knowledge. An investigation into this revealed that every single one of them was done A, in the South, and B, on Black mothers receiving welfare. Many of these women were threatened with canceled welfare benefits unless they consented to the surgery. Similarly, the Nixon administration greatly increased Medicaid-funded sterilization of low-income Americans that were voluntary in policy terms, but later revealed to be involuntary in practical terms. AKA women were often misinformed or uninformed regarding the procedure that they agreed to undergo. No one knows for certain how many compulsory sterilizations have been conducted, but it is estimated that at least 80,000 may have been conducted between the 1960s and 1970s. Fannie Lou Hamer, the civil rights activist, opened up about involuntary hysterectomy she underwent in 1961 while undergoing a minor surgery to remove a tumor. She said, "It's important to know that America was profoundly shaped by the eugenics movement. The legacies continue to play out and the lessons have not been learned. It's an integral part of understanding the history of inequality in the United States and how social ideas can be twisted to promote dehumanization. It wasn't just in the South, by the way. California's history has been particularly disturbing. A whistleblower at LA County Hospital came forward with evidence that Latina women were being tricked or forced into sterilization. The women often did not speak English, and this was taken advantage of when coercing the surgery. I want to zoom in on two other major populations often neglected in our history. Firstly, Puerto Rico. Between 1930 to 1975, nearly 1/3 of the female population in Puerto Rico was sterilized, which was the highest rate of sterilization in the world. This was defended using arguments that this was an effort to fix the country's poverty and unemployment rates. Puerto Rico was notably used as a launchpad for clinical birth control research. Contraceptives were given out without their full consent. Women were told that the pills were to prevent pregnancy, but not that they were the guinea pigs in the trial. Now let's talk about Native American women. As many as 25% between the ages of 15 and 45 were sterilized before 1970. And in the 1970s, it's estimated that as high as 40% of Native American women and 10% of Native American men in the United States underwent sterilization, and it's unclear how many of these were voluntary. States with the highest rates were Arizona, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and South Dakota. This led to calls for reforming the Indian Health Service, as it was revealed to have been recommending sterilization to Native American women as an appropriate form of regular birth control. With the aid of language barriers, they would fail to present potential birth control alternatives, failed to explain the irreversible nature of sterilization, and sometimes threatened that the women would lose their federal benefits if they refused. It was cited that individual physicians' beliefs about the population control of poor communities and welfare recipients, as well as an opportunity for financial gain, could be possible motivations in performing these operations. It's actually pretty common for those who support such sterilization to not view the procedures as cruel, but as beneficial. While we've certainly come a long way, if the ICE report is to mean anything, we clearly have a long way to go. In addition to undocumented immigrants, other recent concerns regarding sterilization abuse involve incarcerated women. In 2013, a report revealed that almost 150 women between 2006 and 2010 were illegally subjected to sterilization in California prisons. Often procedures were discussed with the women when they were the most vulnerable, like during childbirth or other medical procedures. This was a lot. It is a lot. I've linked all my sources below as well as resources for survivors. Thanks for watching.